Okay, so first of all, Kal Kadosh, we wanted to do the Shiur Lilu Nishmat Shlomo ben Regina. Shlomo Yosef ben Regina, Shenishmato Tzorah Chaim, Amen. And also that obviously this should be that this house should always be full of simachot Bezrat Hashem. Should always, Putchim Yichvod Achsanya. Whether it's going to be for, like what you said, Mauricio, your dear mother, or for you and your wife, you should always have this house always full of kol sasom ve'kol simcha. Mauricio asked me to speak about something controversial. Right? He likes these things. So I was thinking, what can I already talk about controversial? And finally I found the secret, and I'm sure you'll all agree with me. We're going to speak about suegros and suegras. Yes. Right? In-laws on both sides. Right? This I think is going to be...
Thank God we don't have any suegras yet. We have one suegra.
Okay, no, but now don't go that far, because you yourselves are going to become suegros very, very soon. Bezrat Hashem. So therefore, you have to know also where your place is. So we have to make sure that whether it's going to be for our suegros, for our in-laws, or the vice versa, that it's going to be for our children, we're going to understand a little bit about this. First of all, we're going to speak about a few different topics. Okay, and one of them is to do with, is there an obligation at all to respect them? Right now, obviously, I would want to say no, right? But is there an obligation to respect them? Yes or not? Right? I heard Joel. I think he said there, of course. But okay, very good. Of course. Is it Doraita? Does it come from the Torah? The Rabbanan? How do I have to respect them? Like my parents? I have to respect my in-laws like my parents? Is it higher up? Lower down? Right? This actually applies to many different things. How does it apply day-to-day life? Right? They come into the room. I have to stand up for them. Let's say all of a sudden we're going to have a child. Right? Who goes first naming the child? Is it the husband side? The wife's side? Depends where you're from. What's going on? All these things we're going to try to touch upon little by little. And we're going to try to analyze where exactly does it come from, the different places. So let's start with that. Okay? We always usually also start with the jokes, right? It always says that Rav used to start a shiur with milta de b'dichuta. Start with the jokes, that way at least when you start, so then afterwards, it's already that you're able to go into the learning properly. So we actually just came out from Achashverosh and Esther, and they actually said, why is it that Achashverosh chose Esther, right, to be the queen and not anybody else, right? So they always say, a very, very famous joke that they say, that Achashverosh purposely took someone that did not have not a father and not a mother. Why? You could be a king over everybody in the world, but not your suegra. That will never happen. You understand? It won't happen in the mother-in-law. And that is just very, very important, because again, the mother-in-law is always very, very special. We'll speak about mother-in-laws also afterwards. Okay? But fine. The same joke, by the way, they say by Yosef and Dinah. Okay, if anybody just wants to know, afterwards I can tell you all the lists of jokes of the suegros, but that will be after the shiur. We started with one, and now we continue. We're going to start now as follows. There are two different places where it's brought down to do with the concept of respecting in-laws. One of them is in the Torah. Where do we see the father-in-law figure in the Torah? So it says by Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu had his father-in-law. And like a good father-in-law, he wants to give you a good word of advice, as usual. And they think that they know it all. So they come, and right away he comes and he starts telling Moshe Rabbeinu how to act, how to conduct. Now Moshe Rabbeinu, he's not a year into office. Even though he was actually a year into office, he actually went through the entire 10 plagues, he did everything. But listen to what it says in the Torah. The Torah says, Vayetze Moshe likra choteno. Moshe Rabbeinu comes out to greet his father-in-law, right? Vayishtachu vayishaklo. He bows to him and he kisses him. Vayishalu ish l'reu l'shalom. And they ask each other how they're doing. Vayavohu and then they came to the tent. Rashi there says, Kavod gadol nitkabed Yitro be'ota shah. Yitro was given a very great honor in that moment. Kevan shiatza Moshe, because once Moshe Rabbeinu came out, Aaron came out, Nadav Avihu came out. Anybody see? So all of a sudden everybody came out. So imagine an entire entourage coming, and they're all going out to greet Yitro. But now it says, Vayishtachu vayishaklu. Who bowed down? Who kissed who? Who did everything here? So it says, En yodea, I don't know. And this is based upon a mechilta. So he says, but one second, it says, Vayishtachu vayishaklo vayishalu ish lere'ehu. A man went and he bowed to his friend, and he was the one that asked how you're doing. Who is the ish? So it says, Aish is Moshe Rabbeinu. Because it says, Vayish Moshe, Anav Me'od. Moshe Rabbeinu, that he's the ish, he was very humble. And since he was very humble, he's the ish which is referring to here. So therefore it comes out that Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that bowed to his father-in-law. He went and he kissed his father-in-law. He was the one that asked his father-in-law how he's doing. And he went and he did all this kavod to his father-in-law. Says the Mechilta. Mechilta is a type of a midrash on the Chumash. So you have a midrash on the Chumash called the Mechilta. The Mechilta says, Mikan ameru shi'eh adam mukhan lichvod chamiv. From here we see that a person should be ready to respect his father-in-law. Okay? That's the Mechilta. So a person should be ready to respect his father-in-law. That's place number one. Who else did we see about father-in-law and son-in-law image? Another one is going to be by David HaMelech and Shaul HaMelech. David was not the king at the time, because obviously it was Shaul, his father-in-law, but David and Shaul. What is happening? If you remember, what happened is that David got married to Michal bat Shaul. How did he get married to Michal bat Shaul? Shaul came and he made a lottery. He went and he said, listen, I'm going to make a competition. Whoever kills Goliath, he gets my daughter. Yeah, imagine, that's a very powerful statement. He gets to get married to the princess, right? Okay. Who is it? David HaMelech. So David HaMelech gets married to Michal bat Shaul. And at the beginning, Shaul was very happy about his son-in-law. But then afterwards, once there got a little bit of jealousy involved, all of a sudden problems started arising. And then Yonatan, we know the famous story, Yonatan, the son of Shaul, loved David even more than his father. He went because he knew that David was going to be the future king. So then what happened is David becomes a fugitive. And he's on the run. And Shaul comes into a cave, and then he goes out, he goes to sleep. David HaMelech comes and he cuts the corner of the garment of Shaul. And he goes out and he says, Ve'avi re'eh gam re'eh. My father, look, and also look. We're going to explain what does that mean. Knaf mi lecha biyadi. I've got the corner of your garment in my hand. Why? Ki becharti knaf mi lecha velo arakticha. I cut your garment. I was so close to you. I was able to cut your garment, and I didn't kill you. Which means David HaMelech now comes to Shaul and says, who are you fooling? You think that I want to kill you? I had the best chance. Here's the proof. Look at your garment. Look down. He looks at the garment. It's cut. I cut it off your garment. I could have killed you in one instance. But I didn't. I didn't kill you. Da you should know I don't have anything negative about you. I didn't sin against you. And you're just pursuing my life to take it. That's all that he's doing. Says the Midrash, Yalkut Shimoni, he comes and it says, why does it say, Avi re'eh gam re'eh? My father, see, look, you have to see what's going on. Mikan shechayav adam bichvod chamiv kichvod aviv. From here we learn that a person is obligated. Right? I'm putting the emphasis on the difference between the two different places. Here a person is obligated to respect his father-in-law, kichvod aviv, just like his father. How do you know? Because he called him Avi. He called him my father. Right? Fine. Says Rabbi Yehuda, Avi Re'eh is to Shaul. Gam Re'eh is to Avner, which he was the second in command. He was the general of the army. Rabbanan say no. Avi Re'eh was to Avner, because he was his teacher in Torah. Gam Re'eh was to Shaul. Now it comes out according to this, it's actually coming out of Machloket. Who's he calling the father? Was he calling the father his Rebbe, his rabbi? Or was he calling his father his father-in-law? Okay? Now on this, there are people that they come, the Zaruch HaShulchan, and others that they come and they start asking, 1 second, right? What's the proof that Avi meant the father-in-law. Maybe he called him my father because he's the king. At the end of the day, Shaul is the king. So he has to respect Shaul twofolds, for two reasons. Number one, he's the king. And number two, he's his father-in-law. But there's two reasons. So whoever said that when it said, my father, that it's only just because it's referring to the king, and maybe it's nothing to do with the father-in-law, it's just because he's a king. So they answer it up that for a king, you don't call him your father. What do you call the king? I heard it. Your Highness, or my master, Adoni. And that's exactly what happened exactly afterwards. Exactly afterwards it says, he comes and he actually tells him, Vayomer David Shaul, Lo eshlach yadi badoni ki Mashiach Hashem hu, va'avi re'eh gam re'eh. Which means the fact that if it was only because of the king, he would have said my master. He wouldn't have called him my father. Because you don't tell a king, you're my father. You say you are my master. By HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by the way, we only call him father, Avinu Malkenu, because we want to trigger both aspects of mercy. Because we come and we tell Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're a father. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're our Melech, Malkenu, you're a king. Why do we mention both? Very simple. Because a king, he has the opportunity to give you anything that he wants. The Gemara says a king could tell you he's going to uproot a mountain, and he'll do it. Right? Remember that a king is not a politician. A king, he rules by force. He's able to do whatever he wants, and he doesn't care. Right? The politicians, they tell you what you want to hear, but it doesn't mean that they're going to do it. However, though, when it has to do with the king, he could do whatever he wants, but not only always does he want to give you everything that you want. A father, by nature, he wants to give you everything that you want, but not always does he have the possibility to give you everything that he wants. So therefore we come and we tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Avinu Malkenu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have both. You are our father, and therefore by nature you want to give us everything, right, that we need, but also you're Malkenu, you're a king, you could give us, you have the possibility, you're the Almighty, that you could give us everything that we need. So therefore here, whenever we're talking about our master, it's a king, it's Adoni. It's not Avi. So therefore, it's not our father. So therefore, Avi here for sure refers to his father-in-law. But now the question is, what would you say is stronger? If I'm going to come and I'm going to tell you, okay, fine, we're finishing the shiur now, right? I know it was a very, very long shiur, and I'm sure that you guys are very, very happy. So now the question is, how do you know you have to respect your father-in-law? What are you going to tell me? From which place? The first one, Yitro and Moshe Rabbeinu, or the second one from David HaMelech and Shaul? Which one are you going to choose? Yitro. Why Yitro? I don't know who said that. I hear something. Was a simple person and still what? That's a good answer. Anybody else? Why would I prefer to use Yitro and Moshe Rabbeinu and not David HaMelech and Shaul? It came from the heart and not, meaning that Moshe Rabbeinu came from the heart because he actually came, it's almost the same answer actually. Very similar, but you're correct, 100%.
Means that Moshe has all the information of God. He still asked to withdraw consejos.
Yeah, advice, 100%. Okay. And therefore you're saying that even though he was the greatest of great, he's still coming into respecting his father-in-law. Meaning that what you're trying to say is now what they said, but you're adding another step. By David HaMelech, who was greater? Shaul was the king. And David has to respect Shaul twofold. Here, Moshe Rabbeinu was the king. Right? And Yitro really should respect Moshe, but Moshe is respecting Yitro. Okay, very good. Anyone else?
Shaul wanted to kill David.
Right.
And even with that, he respected him. What do you think? He would not like him because he wanted to be dead?
Very good.
To kill the father-in-law.
He says that's the...
Excuse.
Still respected him, even though he wanted
Mauricio, be careful what you say tonight. You don't want to sleep in the toilet. Yeah? Yeah?
And David become Melech?
Yes?
And Shaul was
No. Shaul was killed. Shaul was killed. Shaul died, and then David HaMelech became king. Yeah? Who? עוד פעם? מה אמרת?
Shaul David in the battle, and then David became king.
Shmuel no lo unge primero estando Shaul vivo.
No, one second. No, you're right. No, but it was still... No, you're right. No, 100%. He already anointed him. But lo yatsa tivo ba'olam, which means that even though he was anointed by Shemuel and Avi. Okay, very good.
David was alive, Shmuel asalo melech.
Right. He anointed him, but he still was not king 100% until Shaul was killed. But you're right, he was anointed. The opposite, what you just said is the proof, because what happened is that Shemuel came and he told Hashem, how am I going to go to anoint David if Shaul hears he's going to kill me? So he went and he said, go and just say that you're doing sacrifices. And then, by the way, he went and he anointed David HaMelech. You're right, he anointed David, but David did not become the full king until afterwards, until Shaul was killed, okay? But where I thought that you were going, even though you're correct, because we're going to speak about that even if the father-in-law is causing you a lot of problems, is that a permission now to go for the kill or not? Right? We'll speak about that. But I thought that somebody was going to tell me, what's a better proof? If I've got two places where to learn it, should I take the Bible, the Chumash, or should I take the prophets, the Nevi'im? What should I take? Chumash. The Bible, the written Torah. Right? Even the Christians do that. I'm saying everybody does that, which means that obviously if you're going to come and I have a proof from the Torah, or I have a proof from the Nevi'im, I'm going to take from the Torah. So I should have taken from the Torah. However, though, there was a difference in the terminology. And I don't know, I told you I put an emphasis in the terminology, but I don't know if you caught on. The terminology was that by the Mechilta, which is basically the Midrash on the Chumash, it says that from here a person should be ready, should be fitting to respect his father-in-law. By Moshe and by Yitro. However, though, by the case of Shemuel and Shaul HaMelech, it said that from here you're obligated to. So therefore it's actually much stronger, the one of Shaul and David. Now why? Because by Moshe Rabbeinu, they come and they answer, it was out of Derech Eretz. What does that mean, Derech Eretz? Moshe Rabbeinu was giving Derech Eretz to Yitro. What was the Derech Eretz? He was acting out of respect. But it's not because of the father-in-law. How was one of the proofs? Because at the time, it could be he already divorced Tzipporah. At the time, it could be that he already divorced his wife. Because it says, Achar Shilucheha, he sent her away with the two children, and then they came back with the father-in-law. So it could be that even at the time, maybe it wasn't even his real father-in-law anymore. He got divorced, that's it. Once he gets divorced, there's no halachot afterwards that he's obligated to respect, but he did it. Which one?
Maybe he went to ask forgiveness to the wife.
No, but they came to him, not he went to them. Right, remember, they came to him in the desert. Right? So what happens is that they come and they say, the rabbis actually come and they say in the halacha, a person is obligated, it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, a person is obligated to respect his father-in-law. If you want, I'll read to you the Lashon of the Shulchan Aruch. He comes and he says, Chayav Adam lechabed chaviv. Right? A person is obligated to respect his father-in-law. Now why? The Tur comes and he says, Tichtiv va'avi re'eh gam re'eh. Because comes, and again, what does he bring? He doesn't bring down Moshe Rabbeinu. He brings down Shaul and David. He doesn't bring down Moshe Rabbeinu. So therefore, in the books of Halacha, they actually bring down the second one. They don't bring down the first one. Okay, now why? Because of what we just answered. Maybe it could be that it was only because of Derech Eretz. And it's a good thing to do, out of Derech Eretz. But Be'emet, is a person obligated to do so? That you only learn from David and Shaul. And from there you learn that even if he's coming running after you to kill you, you still have to respect him. But now, how do you respect him? Yeah?
Entonces, ¿qué es más importante? ¿Porque es por obligación o porque es por respeto?
So obviously an obligation is much stronger than respect. Respect, I'm obligated to respect you. But if you step on my toe, I'll give you a bofetada. Yeah, I'm gonna give it to you. Right? But now if it's out of kavod, even if a father comes and he smacks you, you take it.
If I am obligated to do something that I don't want to do, I do it because I'm obligated to do it, period.
Okay, that's something different because of your will. Because of your will. No, 100%, that's your will. But a person's obligated to. Even though we will speak that there's still going to be a difference between your parents and your in-laws. Because at the end of the day, even if you're going to tell me now that you're obligated to respect your in-laws, is that like your parents? Is it less? Is it more? What's going to happen? I'll give you one famous example. I mentioned it before. What happens right now? A child is born. You want to give the child your father's name. And the wife comes and she says, over my dead body. I carry the child, right? I carried the child. I suffered. I gave birth. And now you want to come so nicely like this, and take the names. Dream on. What's going to happen? Who's right? The husband or the wife?
The first one, always the husband.
Always the husband. You could tell you're good as Sfaradi.
Well, I was married to a Sephardi.
Exactly. He gave it to you right. He taught you well. Right? By the way, Ashkenazim, it's the exact opposite. Ashkenazim, it always goes by the wife first. And we'll explain in 2 minutes. 1 minute, right? In a few minutes. Okay, very good. So now the question now is... Which one? The suegras is in a few minutes. Well, first we'll go to the suegro, because that's much more mellowed. And then we'll go to the suegra, and then we'll continue. Exactly, the best class. Fine, okay. Now the question is, right, as follows. How exactly are you supposed to respect them? So, okay, now we learned that a person is obligated to respect them, whether it was because of derech eretz, whether it was because of respect. So now you're going to tell me, how do you respect them? So the Bach, he's one of the commentators, Ashkenazi, one of the commentators on the Tur. He comes and he actually deduces that all you have to do to respect them is to respect them like the elderly. What does that mean? Even if you got married and they were still very young, right? You have to respect them like elderly people. So it's brought down in the halakha. You would have to stand up for them, right? The Rabbi Yosef even brings down even to kiss their hand, right? Or if it's not the minhag to kiss them, but to kiss them, to give them this kavod that you're giving them. But there's going to be a difference between the respect that you have to give them and your parents. Why? Because we're going to have to actually ask a very simple question. What happens if your parents ask you for something and your in-laws ask you for something? Who goes first?
Shalom.
Your parents. Your parents gave birth, gave you life.
So therefore?
So it's your parents.
Okay.
Your parents is one of the 10 commandments.
Very good. So you got your parents and you got your in-laws. Now the question is, what about for the wife? Is it the same thing or not?
I say to the in-laws first.
To the in-laws first. Okay, so 1 minute. We're going to get there. I'm going to read to you a Gaon Mivilna. Listen to this Gaon Mivilna and then a Sefer Charedim. We know the Gaon Mivilna, it was called in Ashkenazi Vilna Gaon. He was a person that was something incredible. At the age of 7, he couldn't have a Rebbe anymore. He couldn't have a teacher. Right? There was nobody able to teach him. He knew everything. When he knew the Torah, he knew it forwards and backwards. Which means that for us, if I'm going to tell you now to say Asher Yishvei Betecha or Kriyat Shema backwards, you would have to say 1 second. It says Uchtatam zo betecha visharecha. So you say Uvisharecha Uchtata. You continue going backwards. He knew it forwards and backwards the same way. So therefore, that's just the way of the Gaon. His mind was right in Torah and everything. The Gaon comes and he's writing a letter. Right? This is actually a very famous letter. Just like we know that there's the Geret Ramban, the letter of the Ramban Nachmanides. There's the letter of the Gaon Mivilna. And there, the Gaon Mivilna comes and he says, Gam bati levakesh mi ishti. I'm also asking from my wife, shetechabed et imi, that she should respect my mother, kemo shekatuv b'Torah, just like it's written in the Torah. So you see from here that the Gaon is actually learning that it's mamash mina Torah. It's not just a joke. Rather, you're going to come and tell me, no, you have to honor the mother-in-law. It's mamash, it's like it's written in the Torah. But now listen to the Sefer Charedim. The Sefer Charedim, this is a book which is written on the Torah. and he's explaining the different mitzvot in the Torah. And he says like this: a person is obligated to respect his father-in-law and mother-in-law. And the reason why is because the husband and wife are one unit. We are one body. And therefore, your father and mother is like her father and mother, and her father and mother is like your father and mother. And that's what's brought down in the Midrash Shochar Tov. And Tana de Eliyahu, and Eliyahu Navi Zechur Tov, he comes and he teaches, Kabed et avicha, it says you have to respect your parents. And then immediately afterwards it's written, Lo tin'af, you're not allowed to commit adultery. What is the connection between adultery and respecting your parents? Lelamedcha, to teach you that if a person gets married to a woman and she doesn't respect his mother or his father when they are elderly, be'etzik natan, he says it when they're elderly, because when they're young, it's a little bit easier to respect them. But when they get elderly, it becomes a little bit more challenging. Harehu ki'ilu no'ef kol yamav. It's as if that he's committing adultery his entire life. Which means that the connection, the proximity between the two, the reason why it was juxtaposed, that you have, first of all, it's considered that the person himself is committing adultery. Because how could he get married to a woman that she's not respecting his parents? That's what's brought down in the Sefer Charidim. So obviously you're learning that they're learning that it's mamash something strong. It's something from the Torah, how strong that it is. Now the question is that we're going to now come and ask, one second. So now I have a dilemma. Why? Because before we asked and they started telling me, one second, who comes first? Your in-laws or your parents? Right? Or for the husband and the wife, is there a difference or not? So I'll give you an example. Right? You're in your house and you ask your child for a cup of water. Okay? They have to bring you a cup of water. Perfect. What happens now if your wife asks them for a cup of water? Who goes first? The child now is in a dilemma. He has to give a cup of water to his father and a cup of water to his mother. Right? Who does he give first? So somebody told me, yeah, I give with two hands. Right? One on one. No, we're not talking about one on one. You can't do it. You have a choice. Either a father or a mother. Mother. Father. So first your father, then your mother. Father. Anybody else? Yeah? So one says, here I've got father, there I've got mother. You can tell they're mothers. Right? She's the only woman that actually said it correct. Right? She's actually correct. No, basically like this. She was... Eso kol hakavod. That's very good. But I'm going to tell you the halakha. The halakha. That's to do with fear. One second, that's to do with fear. By the way, if you already mentioned fear, temor, I will actually explain to you that that's actually going to be one of the differences. Oh wow. Blinded eye. And your mother-in-law said that the mother will say to give it to the father. So it depends which house you come from. So listen carefully. I'll tell you the halakha. Right? She was correct in what she said to do with a rabbi and a father. Meaning, when you have your rabbi that asks you for something and your father that asks you for something, right? There you give to your rabbi. Because your rabbi brings you to Olam Haba, and your father brought you into this world. Meaning, your rabbi brings you to the next world, which that's the eternal world. Okay? And therefore, she's correct. That's to do with a rabbi and a father. But now, what about the father and the mother? Both the father and the mother, they both brought you into this world. You're right. If the father teaches you Torah, so then there you could get there as well. But let's say you don't get there. Let's say it's not that the father is getting there. So now the halakha states as follows, right? The father, right, gets it first. Why? Because the mother is also obligated to respect the father. Listen carefully. The mother is also obligated to respect the father. Right? Now I know I'm going to get pounced on, so 1 minute. Yeah, 1 second. Nunca se vio. Listen carefully. 1 second. Okay, listen carefully. Mauricio asked me something controversial. I couldn't get a better topic. 1 second. So now what happens is like this. Yeah, 1 second. Yes.
Just like, as we progress and as we adapt and the world goes, on and on, like, at what point do these laws get updated?
So I'm going.
Asking for a friend.
Okay, fine. So. Exactly, that's women's rights. So I'm going to ask you a question, right? Whenever you have the liberals that they're going to tell you that, tell them that instead of fighting for women's rights, they should actually practice what they preach. Right? What does that mean? Right? Listen carefully. What does that mean? That means that the next time they come and they see a woman going clad on the street, they should scream, why is she right now going like an animal? She should dress like a human being. What does that mean? That means that many times the women nowadays, they want to have women's rights and they are exactly like men. But women, when they want, they're going to tell you, no, but we have hormones. Right? You don't have hormones, so I could have PMS and I could have this and I could do this and I could do that. And you don't have the same thing. Which means that it's true. Men and women are completely made different. And therefore, each one, we have to respect them. And we have to understand our own boundaries. Because the day that I'm going to come and tell a woman, I want you to start carrying that big load, you're going to say, excuse me, where's or I'm going to say, no, open up the door for me. Women come further. No. So therefore, we have to actually tell them that it all depends. We don't adapt, and the reason why we don't adapt is because the Torah is truth from the beginning of creation to the end of creation. Everything was done with chesed. And therefore, just like a man will not give birth, not because we don't want him to give birth, because if he gives birth, he would die. Right? It doesn't exist him giving birth, and only a woman would be able to sustain that pain. The same thing, a man cannot bring up children, because a man that brings up children, the children will be mute, because you don't find the father coming and telling the child, hey, you want to eat. A man will not come and start talking to his child. Right? A woman will speak to the child, right? Just as women talk. Men will not do that. So therefore, which one?
May I interrupt on that point?
Yes.
So, we're talking about respect. But what about the respect of the man to the woman? Because on that point,
very good.
And I must say, and I concur with my friend Rabbis, even the point of a man not being able to raise a child and talk, like you said, and with all respect, Rabbi, that to me is demeaning, because I never talk to my child on a little coochie way, because I'm so my style. But I find that there should be respect of a man to a woman as well.
100%. So very good. What you just said.
Another point.
Yes.
Once the child is born, the child cannot live without the mother, but
100%.
without the father, because the mother will give him everything he needs, nurture him through life until he is an independent person. And you see it every day. A child without the mother, the father is lost. He needs to find a substitute for the mother in order to have that child.
Even though nowadays, if you already want to go back to what she said, nowadays, by the way, you should know, I have a man, right? I have somebody that I know, he's already 60 years old, that what he did he did IVF, that he put his semen, right, with another woman, that she was basically the carrier, right, the surrogate. And what happened was that he had a child, and he's raising the child himself. He has a nurse to take care of the child once in a while, but basically he's raising him on his own. So you're right, but what she pointed out to is what we're going to speak about in 1 minute. What about 1 second? The respect of the husband towards the wife. So 1 minute, and we're going to get to that in 1 minute. So now, but keep it there. Now, just 1 second. Now, what happened is as follows. We said now the halacha. This is brought down in Gemara and halacha, which means this: a father asks you for a cup of water, mother asks you for a cup of water. Since the mother is obligated also to serve the father, right? So therefore, what happens? You have to give to the father first. What happens if they get divorced? Now they're equal, because once they get divorced, the mother is not obligated to respect the father anymore. And therefore, if they both ask you for the cup of water, whoever came first, you give it to them first. Okay? Very good. Now what happens in the following scenario. Now what happens in the following scenario, right? We just said that the mother is obligated to respect the father, and therefore she has to give it to him first. Very good. Now what happens is as follows, right? If right now the in-laws say something, so now what's going to happen in such a scenario? Why? Because if right now you're obligated to respect your in-laws, so therefore it comes out that now everything goes to the in-laws and you have to respect them even before yourself. Now does that apply or doesn't it apply? Because at the end of the day, how does that make sense? So for example, your wife comes and let's say you ask for a cup of water and your father-in-law asks for a cup of water. Now 1 second, who should get the cup of water first? Is it you, because she's obligated to respect her husband? Or is it her father, right? Because you're obligated to respect her father. So now where does it go? Right? So who gets the cup of water first now? The father-in-law, you say? Because he's older. So forget about the father-in-law. You've got an old man at the table and you have your husband. Who should go first? The older guy. Fine. Now let's reverse. Right? Now you have your wife at the table and some grandma on the table. Who are you going to serve wine to first? The older woman.
Rabbi,
Okay.
this child needs a lot of therapy.
Fine. So I'm going to explain as follows.
Another example, if both in-laws are home, who you're serving first?
That's another one. What happens that you have both in-laws? So I'm going to give to you what's written in the halakha. Listen carefully. The halakha states that really be'emet, who should always come first? The husband. Now why? Why is it the husband should always come first? And by the way, this could happen every single Shabbat. You could be on the Shabbat table, right? And all of a sudden now you cut challah, right? And now you've got a choice. Who do you give the challah to first? Or you're going to give out the kiddush. Who do you give to the kiddush first? Or you're going to serve. Who do you serve first? So in all these cases, one second before right? What happens is in all these cases, I'm going to give you the halakha, and then I'm going to give you what's called the ma'aseh. Halakha means what is the actual halakha, and the ma'aseh is how do you actually act. Okay, so the halakha is the husband. Why? Because if right now her father asks her to do something, and her husband asks her to do something, who does she have to listen to? This is, by the way, the Gemara and halakha. Which one?
Depends, first of all, if she's a bad Kohen. It makes a difference.
No, because when she gets married, she's not going
No, but still with your father, you're supposed to still marry this.
No. To do with a bat kohen is a little bit different. To do with if it's a desecration. You are correct that a bat kohen, if it's a desecration, then it's against the kiuna. But to do with the concept, or for example, if she gets divorced and there's no kids, so she goes back to the kiuna. That's something different. But here I'm talking about respect from the fact that, let's say he's not a kohen because you don't have to, there's an extra respect. She is correct in the concept of respecting a kohen more than anybody else. But 1 second, but right, 1 second, right? But without the extra respect of a kohen, what is first has to go? The husband. Why? Because the Torah exempted her from kibud avayim. It exempted her from respecting her parents because now she has the yoke of her husband. Which means that now she has somebody on top of her. Who's that? The husband. So she has to respect the husband. Now what happens is that now...
What about the other way around?
The what?
The other way around.
How's the other way around?
The husband just to give first to the mother or the wife?
So now, 1 second. Before going even to where you goes, now I'm going to... 1 second, because I also had a question there before. 1 second. 1 second. They're not patient. I can't even get one thing done. Fine, 1 second. How about this? Everybody for 5 minutes, just let me get through the point and then we'll go through it one by one because I'll actually answer everything. 1 second, right? 1 second. So now what happens is as follows. Now it comes out, there's a huge novelty, a chidush. What is a chidush? Listen carefully, right? It comes out that the wife has to serve the husband, okay? Why? Because she's obligated to serve the husband, and only afterwards, the father-in-laws. Are you going to do that lema'aseh, which means in practicality, are you going to do that? I didn't say that, but just wait 1 minute. That's the halakha. Now what happens if it's the opposite way around, and that's why I thought that you were asking, if it's his parents. So now what happens is that she's obligated to respect her husband, but her husband is obligated to respect his parents. So it comes out that she has a bigger obligation to respect his parents than what she's actually respecting her own parents because of the scenario. Now here's the controversial part. But now 1 minute. Before I continue, right? Let's get to now Lema'aseh. Lema'aseh is that even though in practicality, even though what I just mentioned now, and by the way, that's the reason why in the halacha, it's brought down that you first have to give to the husband. Now, what about the respect vice versa? We'll speak about that in a minute. So now, one second. So now, the halacha l'maaseh is as follows. Halacha l'maaseh is that the way to get out of the problem is always to give the respect back. Remember, Ezeu mechubad hamchabed et habriot. If you want respect, if you give the respect, you will give it back. You will get it back. So now how do you do that? 1 second. How do you do that? So for example, the wife right now is going to serve. Who should she serve first? Her husband. She comes and she tells her husband, okay, what would you like? He's going to, Seder el Paso as they say, he's going to now see, then he's going to say, no, you know what? Serve your father. He's going to be the one that's giving that. Now that he does that, now what happens is the mitzvah is back on her, then now she has to respect the father and the husband because that's the will of the husband. So now he's going to give to the suegro, and the same thing, vice versa. But now it comes out that really bemet, even though you're right, mitzad halacha, it was the husband to the wife, just like it should be for the husband to the wife, just like the wife to the husband. Each way works that way. How do we see that? The exact same halacha, and this is where I'm going back to what you mentioned is, what about the case that I mentioned before to do with birth? A woman gives birth, and now by the Ashkenazim, right, what happened is that by the Ashkenazim, the wife is the one that takes the first child. And by the Sfaradim, it's the husband that takes the first child. By the way, this did not only start from now, it started already from the Torah. This is already brought down, whether it's in Oziel, by Yehuda, it says Vayikra, Vatikra, it says he called, she called. Why did he keep on changing and who called the names? And it says because the minhag was first the husband and then the wife. Ashkenazim was the opposite. The Ashkenazim, first it's the wife that gets the first name and then the husband. Imagine right now, and this is a case that happened. A case that happened was a man gets married and his mother and the mother-in-law have the same name. Now, don't jump. What's bad is if the daughter-in-law and mother-in-law have the same name. But if the two mother-in-laws have the same name, that's fine. So what happened is his mother passed away. So the minhag of Ashkenazim, they call after people that pass away. So he wants to come and call his mother because she passed away. Now there's a problem. The suegra is going crazy because she's still alive. Who are you calling? You can't start calling. So what are you doing? So they went and they asked the big rabbi. The big rabbi came at the beginning and he said, one second. First of all, the husband is the one that has to support. And the husband is the one that has to support the child. Right? And even if there's a divorce or anything, the husband is the one that child care is on the husband. He has to come and alimony, everything. He has to support. And it's his mitzvah. The brit milah is on the husband. It's not on the wife. Technically, a husband could go to the brit milah, call him, mahluf or I don't know what. Okay, afterwards, I don't know how far he'll get with his wife, but he could do whatever he wants and that's it. You understand? He'll do whatever he wants. But what happens is, so first the rabbi went and he said, listen, by nature, I would have said by first thought, he has the choice, they cannot stop him. But then he went and he stopped and he said, 1 second. Second thought, there's a minhag. What's the minhag? In many different halachot, there are certain minhagim of when you get married, how do you follow? When he got married, right, the minhag is that the wife, out of respect, she gets the first child by the Ashkenazim. So because of that, he comes and he says, he has no right to take away that respect from his wife. A husband to a wife, what is the respect that a husband gives to a wife? You know what the respect that a husband gives to a wife is? The Rambam brings down, he has to respect his wife more than himself. How does he respect the wife more than himself? Says the Rambam, you know how, right? When it comes to Chagim, you buy her beautiful, whether it's going to be jewelry, clothing, you get her things that she likes. The husband, which one? The husband, right? He doesn't need that. You know what the husband needs? The Rambam in the exact next halakha, the Rambam says, how does a woman respect her husband? She has to treat him like a king. What does that mean? A man, he wants to feel the man in the house. How does he feel the man in the house? When you give him the respect. When you come and you give him the authority, he's the boss, right? Again, many times she'll pretend that he's the boss, but at least she has to give it to him. Understand? She has to make him feel that way. The Be'emet, he's the boss, right? That's the respect that the wife has to give to the husband. The husband that he has to give the respect to the wife is what she likes. What do women like, right? They don't care if you're going to come and you're going to give her she's going to say, what? You forgot, right? Already on the third birthday, you forgot to buy me a birthday present. And then on the 7th anniversary, you forgot to do this. And then she wants clothing. She wants jewelry. That's what you have to give her the respect. That's how you respect the wife. So therefore, what happens is that I'm going to sum it up very, very quickly before I take questions again, even though there's much more, but I'm going to try to stop it here, but I'm going to start like this. So just to sum up as follows. To do with the respecting the in-laws, there were 2 places written, one in the Torah and one in the Nevi'im. The halakha is actually brought down, right? It was from the Nevi'im. Why did it choose the Nevi'im? Because we said it was from the Torah. You could have answered it was only derech eretz. It wasn't really obligation. But it is an obligation. How do you respect the in-laws? You stand up for them, right? You're going to come, you're going to kiss them, you're going to give them that respect, 100%. But it's not like your parents. It's 100%, it's not like your parents. To call them by their first name, it's also not desirable. It's written mefurash. Yalkut Yosef brings it down, and others bring it. You shouldn't call them by their first name. You should always call them whatever it is. If you want to call them father and mother, technically speaking, right, they are allowed as long as maybe your parents don't like it. I know that in Spanish, I always remember a lot of people used to tell me, madre, madre, y la demás es aire, right, which means don't even dare about calling your parents, right, but your in-laws by your parents, because they feel that this is their kavod that you're giving them. You understand? So, okay, but you should come, you have to respect them, 100%. Now, what happens is, that respect, where does it play in the Shalom Bayit? So 1 second. Mitzad halacha, the wife has to respect her husband even more than her parents. The second that she got married, she gets out of the jurisdiction of her parents, and now she doesn't respect her parents. She's obligated, but it's not the same. And that's the difference, by the way, between parents and in-laws. Parents, you're obligated, kibud avaim and mora avaim. Kibud is honrar y temor, right? You have to fear your parents. You don't have to fear your in-laws, even if it could be that naturally you do, but you're not obligated to. You're not obligated to, right? You're not obligated to. It's not an obligation. You have to respect them, not more than that. Now when we come back to the halachot, it comes out. Halacha, the husband comes, and he's going to give, technically, he will give to his parents even before his own wife. But again, even if I have all that on the table, the way that I do, and this actually I heard from Rav David Peretz, he once gave us a shiur on this, right, many years ago, and he once said, like this, he said very simple, he said, how are you going to do it? Very simple. Imagine right now, you have your parents at the table, and your wife's parents at the table, and everyone's at the table. Now what do you do? So he said he said, what do you do? Very, very simple. The husband is going to come, he's going to cut the bread, right? But he's going to do the kiddush. What does he do first? So technically, we know that al pi Kabbalah and the halacha, the wife is always first. But he doesn't have to give her the piece first. Cut the bread, and you leave it there. Now what do? You continue cutting. The next 2 pieces of bread, right, you would give to your parents, obviously, because the husband is obligated to his parents more, right, than his in-laws. So he has to give to his parents. After that, he cuts another 2 pieces of bread, he gives to his in-laws. Then he's going to give to his wife, but he already cut that piece first. So that piece was fine. That was his wife's. But he's given it to her. And then he continues going. Let's say his parents are not involved, right? Or, for example, now it's the wife. So now she's serving the food. How would she do it? So she's going to come. She's obligated to serve the husband first. That's her mitzvah. Her mitzvah is first to the husband. What's she going to do? She offers the husband. The husband passes it to the in-laws. And then by doing that way, even though mitzad halacha, I told you what was the order, but mitzad the derech eretz of how you're going to do it, you're going to do it in a way that actually comes beautifully in everything together. I hope I answered the majority of the questions. I know there was much more questions. I know there was somebody wanted to ask a question also over there. I don't remember, it was in the corner. Mauricio, beside you, somebody also wanted to ask a question. No? Any other questions?
Let's just assume that you go into the point that you made, much more validated as to be heard and to pay attention to the wife rather than just give. Because I know a lot of people that get plenty of material things and they have a terrible marriage. So,
Okay,
just
so,
on that note, I
yeah.
would like you to point out, because I really think that the fact that the woman makes the husband feel like a king, she's giving him that attention and that essence of making him feel special. I believe that a woman also would like to feel.
Okay, so I'll answer both very quickly, and it goes like this. First of all, the halakha states that a husband is obligated according to his level, which means that according to the level of wealth that he has, that's what he's obligated to give to his wife. So for example, a person that's more affluent, he's richer, so he's more wealthy, so he would have to give to his wife much more, whether it's of jewelry, whether it's of even cleaners. Right? If a person doesn't have a lot of money, the wife technically would clean the house. If he's got a lot of money, so then he gets cleaners. There's more money, you get even more cleaners, and you continue going. And that's why in Morocco and other places they had, whether it's going to be one maid for the sewing, one maid for the ironing, one maid for the cleaning, one maid for everything. Because if they had it according to the amount of money, that's what he's obligated to give. To do with the second question that you asked, it all depends. I'm going to explain as follows. I'm not saying that you're shutting up the wife by giving her clothing and not giving her attention. The attention that a woman seeks is in clothing. Meaning, the most important thing...
I have no idea, Rabbi, where you get that. And you can
Okay.
you can take a poll from all the women here. I have no idea who came up with that.
Okay, so I'll explain it to you as follows, right? First of all, did you ever go to a woman's closet and a man's closet?
He has
What? Oh, so you might be an exception to the rule. No, but even without that, right? Even without that, I'll explain it as follows. Women want, right? Women want the respect from their husbands, and the way that you give them the respect is by giving them their attention. Their attention is going to be, whether it's going to be in jewelry or in clothing, because that's what's important to them. Okay? By the men, they don't... Okay?
It's a nice treat.
By the way, you should know, it's not what the men think. Okay?
The same way that a man wants to feel like a king by his wife, the woman wants to feel like a queen on the eyes of his
And that's how. That's how he makes her feel like a queen.
No, not necessarily.
That's how he makes her feel like a queen. You're saying not anymore.
Progressed in a way that a woman's mind and emotional is equivalent to the man's. And it's not equivalent, and you cannot put a value on it onto clothes or jewelry onto it. It's not the same anymore. It was 50, 60 years ago, but today, 2022, it's not the same.
Okay? What? No, 100%. I know that, but it's okay. No, there's always exceptions to the rules. There's always exceptions to the rules, but by far, even until today, you will see it. You will see it in teenagers, right? You will see it in teenagers that the way of even in the way the girls are and the way the boys are, right? In teenagers of now, you don't have to go that far. Even in 2022, you see teenagers. Everything's about the dress, right? Boys will try to be cool, but it's much more that they want to feel important. Now, if feeling important means that you have to have $1,000 shoes or that, it could be. But boys want to feel important. The women, it's in the way that they are.
It's a way of the way they're expressing themselves today. It's a way of art. It's a way of the way they're doing it. That's what they're making today. But because it's a more visual way in the girl, coming from a religious man, you're seeing the difference. That's why you're able to compare it. Where a pair of shoes from a boy to compare it to a little mini skirt of a girl, it's visual for you. And because of the differences, you're not able to hear a girl express her mind or her ways because of the environment here. And that's why we're running into a little, we're voicing our ways a little differently than maybe what you're used to, is because of that. But this is that's what we're trying to express our ways.
Right, no, I hear you.
And also material things ease you for a while. After very short time, you are starting again.
100%. That's nature. 100%. That's why by every chag he has to give you something. Every chag he has to give you something. What did you want to ask?
Where does that come into?
Which one? Lechabdo? Right.
I think it's in the Torah, no?
No, that's in the Torah for sure,
Right,
100%.
So how does that play into respect and all that?
No, that plays into respect. That basically what happens is that once a person gets married, he abandons his parents and his wife becomes his main feature in the world. But at the end of the day, he still is obligated in the kibbud of em because he never was taken out from there. You have to remember, that's what they were mentioning before also, to do with the nature of society has changed, that in the olden days, right, the son always stayed with the family. It was the woman that moved away. Nowadays it's the opposite. Nowadays the majority of the times the women are staying with Bayu and the men are moving away. Right? But in the olden days it didn't exist like that. Why? Because it was always the men that continued, whether it's the family business, whether it's of everything that is. China, why do you think they all want the men? Right? They all wanted the boys. If you could only have one child, you obviously want the boy because the girl is not going to get you anywhere. At the end of the day, they went and the Gamanu, there was nothing left anymore. So therefore they always wanted the boys because it still had that. And that's the way that it was always. Nowadays, again, many times you're right, because of the society that we live in, we become, it even changes our minds. You understand? Which is actually not always the healthiest, because many times afterwards, they want to start switching roles, right? Which not always works. So therefore, you're right, in that aspect of Vedavak B'ishto means that a person clings to his wife, and this is what his focus now on is. It says that he becomes so attached to his wife that everybody else becomes foreign to him. That's the explanation of the Davak B'ishto, that he completely clings to her, that there's nobody else in the world. Everyone else, he sees another woman, this is strange to me. Why? Because his wife is the most normal, and everybody else is just not normal. That's the explanation of the Davak B'ishto.
Rabbi, can I ask you a question? Can these laws be reset for gender equality or they're set in stone?
What does that mean?
What I mean is, my question is, can any of these laws be reset for gender equality? Because can the laws be reset for gender equality? Because it seems like, with the laws of the Torah, it's always about the woman respecting the man. And that's well and good, but it works both ways.
I said that it works both ways, and I explained it.
Right.
And I explained it works both ways. But each one needs something different. Meaning what men need and what women need are two different things. Right?
The definition of what the ladies need under the Torah is very different from what you're hearing right now. In other words, their needs for fulfillment are very different from what you described.
No, I'll explain it as follows. Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, to do with, women, what do they need? Yeah? Women need attention. Okay? 100%. What does that mean that they need attention? Women need to be recognized, right? And to be focused on. What does that mean? A man, by nature, he forgets about his wife. What does that mean? He goes to work, right? He's not thinking 24/7. He's making the phone calls to think. He's not thinking about his wife and about what's going on and about what's happening. A woman, by nature, right? She always wants that the husband is thinking about her. So therefore, right, what happens is, for example, she's calling him. Where are you? Well, I'm stuck in traffic. Well, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me? Why are you not informing me of what's going on? So, okay, fine. I'm stuck in traffic. What's the big deal? But the problem is that they want you to think about it. Now, what happens is the opposite. Let's say right now they're late and you didn't call. What's the problem? Why didn't you call? Now you're going to think, why am I going to call? She just went out with her friends. Let her live. Let her enjoy. What's the first question she's going to tell you? Well, you don't care about me. You know what could have happened? Why didn't you call? Why didn't I call? I didn't call because I wanted to give you space. Right? But what happens is that women by nature, they need to be attached. They need to be, attached to someone. So that's the reason why God invented purposely that women speak more. Yeah? Now you think it's a joke, it's a Gemara. But it's not something negative. It's actually something more positive. Because if you remember, we once gave a shiur, I think it was in your house, Mrs. Sion. I think it was, I don't remember how many years ago. It was in your house on Hollywood Diplomat, right? That we went and we spoke about Shalom Bayit, and he said, who's more apt for marriage? Who's more fitting for marriage? A man or a woman? Right? And the answer is a woman. Why is a woman more apt for marriage? Because she is more of a partner. A man, if she doesn't have to take out, all the information from him like a thing, so then what happens is he would just stay quiet all day. And he would just be busy doing his things, and he would not really pay much attention. It's the woman that she's always new, and who do you speak up to, and what's new, and what's going on, and why didn't you tell me about this? I did tell you. No, you didn't. You didn't tell me anything. And then she has to tell you everything that went on during the day. That for you, it's like, again, who do I care? Who you saw in the bank? Who you didn't see in the bank? Where did you go? How did you do it? Who told you what? Men don't really focus on that. Again, I will say always there are exceptions to the rules, because I've seen men also that, but there's more of a general consensus, right? And that's normal. Now again, each one was made for that purpose. So for example, when it speaks about speech, so it says it's actually something's positive. Why? Women are more apt for speaking to Hashem. Why is it that women don't have to pray 3 times a day? You know why? Because they pray all the time. They come to the mezuzah, and the older generations, they would open up the windows, they would come, they would speak to the heavens, they would come speak to Hashem. Go to the mezuzah, speak to the mezuzah, Frashat Chalad, every 2 minutes. Men, if you would tell them, listen, you don't have to pray 3 times a day, you know when he would pray? Never. He would come for Kippur, he would come pray. Why? Because for a man, it has to be, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, this way. If not, it just doesn't happen. Women by nature are like that. So obviously there's a lot of differences between men and women. Some of them, because of the society, have changed, but the majority are all there, just underlined in different ways, and just the way that it is.
Rabbi, you are talking about alaha. Alaha is made out of customs that we call alaha, correct?
No, not always.
Many times, yeah.
Many times, yes, but not always.
But in the Torah we have one event in which even Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to answer. When the daughters of Zelophehad, in the division of the land of Israel, they were not going to get
a portion of land.
A piece of land because there was not a boy,
a man, right? A man was.
As a successor. What did Hashem tell Moshe Rabbeinu? They are very smart, and they know, and they deserve it. And they got it in order to honor their father. The daughters of Zelophehad got a piece of the land of Israel.
Yes.
So that's an instance in which there is equality. The same way that the man deserves respect, the woman deserves the same respect. And only when you voice it is when you get it, not because of pressure. But usually, according to the halacha, the woman always has to respect the man, and then it's valid what you said. And how about the man respecting the woman?
And I said that, I already said. Nobody says that a man does not have to respect his wife. Right? Nobody said that he could buy her clothing and then call her, I don't know what. You understand?
It's automatic, but the woman deserves the same kind of treatment as the man wants out of his wife.
Okay. It's completely different even nowadays. That's what we have today as well. Okay, we'll stop here, B'ezrat Hashem. Yeah. Yes.